Does it feel like every part of your life is divided? Every scenario, every environment, your church, your school, your work, your friends, left, right, conservative, liberal, religious, secular. It seems you always have to take a side. This is a conversation between a progressive Christian and a conservative atheist who happen to be great friends. Welcome to Living on Common Ground.
Hey, do you think if we met today, we would still be friends?
I don't know, but we're friends now.
Man, so what? We won a few games. And y'all fools think that's something? Man, that ain't nothing, y'all. And you know what else? We ain't nothing either. Yeah, we came together in camp. Cool. But then we're right back here and the world tells us that they don't want us to be together. We fall apart like we ain't a damn bit of nothing, man. And y'all think we done won something? Man, we ain't won nothing, y'all.
I hear you. Okay. So we've been having some conversations about, thanks to Catherine and her initial email a while ago. We've had conversations about metaphysics, which then led into some conversations about AI.
Yeah, she had good questions.
She did. And then she has sent us a whole nother round of questions.
Yeah, which I'm going to try to pull up. I'm sure you have it up in front of you.
Well, I print them. I'm old.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
And so anyway, I've also been listening to this podcast called Bedtime Stories.
Okay, yeah.
And it deals a lot with what I would call the supernatural.
Okay.
It talks about... But
you know what's fun? Did you ever listen to Coast to Coast?
No.
Oh, man. Okay, this is really narrow casting because, well, we have 13 listeners or something like that now?
Oh, no. We're way over that now.
Okay. Well, but I don't know how many people, I think I'm going to get this name wrong because you mentioned you know some author named something Bell, right? Is it Rob?
Rob Bell.
Okay. There's this guy, this host, I want to say his name was Rob Bell also.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been Rick. It doesn't matter. The point is, he did this overnight talk radio show called Coast to Coast. And it was just, it might still be going on with somebody else, but it was the craziest. It's pre-internet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's pre-podcasting and where this is a banality now, where you can find podcasts with legends and cryptids and whatever,
Yeah.
And it was this overnight and people would call in as you would on talk radio, at 2:00 in the morning and tell them about their experience with a UFO.
Okay.
And it was just, you just tell them whatever's, and it was just all these stories about conspiracy and you get the wildest, of course, because people are at 3:00 in the morning.
Right.
Authorities believe alcohol is involved, obviously, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, this is what your podcast that you're talking about. It reminds me of a newer version of this, of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I stumbled across it because I was actually listening to another podcast put out by the same group, and then I went back and I looked at all the different things. But so I've been listening to the two. One of them is a Twisted History.
Okay,
and then the other, I think I sent you.
Is that the one you sent to me?
Yeah, and then
I still haven't listened to.
That's
Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. It doesn't hurt my feelings. And then
it would hurt my feelings, so that's why I'm apologizing.
And then that got me into bedtime stories.
Okay.
And then just to finish the trifecta, I've also started listening to one called Redacted.
Okay,
which is about government secrets.
Oh, very good.
It's pretty interesting. So anyway, it got me thinking about our conversations with metaphysics and things, and talking about, I think I kind of tongue in cheek, but I think it was pretty close when I said that you believe in metaphoric, but not metaphysic.
Yeah, and I'm sure somebody like our guest that's coming up next week would have.
Why don't you drop a? Why don't you drop a?
So we're going to be talking to. Well, I mean, this is your guy.
I'm super excited about it, but yeah, go ahead.
We're going to be talking to Peter Rollins next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he agreed to come on the podcast and just just talk to us?
Yeah. So I asked him if he would be willing to come on and share about. Now, see, I have to shift gears in my mind for a second. He talks about pyrotheology.
Yeah.
And I want to explore a little bit of the work that he's doing with pyrotheology. What exactly is that? What is he doing? And then does that somehow connect to this ability to be able to live on common ground in order to bridge gaps, overcome differences between people?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my own experience, it did.
Yeah.
And so
by the way,
yeah.
your former sales life is coming out strong with that. I love that. It's the ask when you're afraid to ask, go where you're afraid to go, see the people you're afraid to see, is like straight. And then, because you always get a no if you don't ask, right? You just asked him and he was
very cool about it.
Yeah.
And then I crapped my pants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought him up is because he's, again, I don't know his work well, but I've been listening to his podcast. It's been going on for at least 6 or 7 years, and he does a lot of he explains a lot of stuff. So a lot of my questions are going to be coming from that. But you told me he's originally a philosopher, which is clear from this. And so the reason I brought him up is because I'm sure someone like him would have a more sophisticated definition of the metaphorical versus the metaphysical and all of that. But I just mean that I think that these concepts have resonance in a mythical type of way that Joseph Campbell would talk about, a way that drives us, even if we don't know that they drive us. And at some point, it's okay to talk about an angel or a demon as a real thing, if it's real to you in the ontological sense. But I don't believe it as a metaphysical reality.
Sure.
If you press me.
Right.
So that was what we
I think that went back to this idea of...
and I didn't mean to re-adjudicate that.
No, I think it's good. It goes back to this idea, if I remember correctly, that we were talking about, that the problem is you're okay with knowing that there are some things that we don't know yet, but they are knowable. And that by metaphysics, the very definition of what metaphysics would be exploring are the things that are actually unknowable.
Categorically. At least that's how I'm defining it.
Yeah, and that's fine. So, but that got me thinking about, okay, so then what's the difference between metaphysics and supernatural? And then what's the difference between supernatural and paranormal?
Or at least what do you mean by the difference? Because the difference is a different mouth sound, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. If we want to talk about the philosophy of language.
But do you mean something different?
Right.
Is what you're saying.
And I think there is. All right. So for me, supernatural would be the thing that we can't explain yet.
Okay.
But it is grounded in what, lack of a better term, like reality.
Okay.
Okay. It'd be measurable. It would be something that we could touch. It would be something, but right now we just can't because we just haven't reached it yet.
I think that Chris and I took a road trip last week while the youth were on their service trip because we got an opportunity to not have kids on vacation for the first time in like 16 years. So that was cool. And so we ended up talking about this, not a lot, but on a couple of the drives. And I think, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, that she might define those exactly the opposite.
Yeah, and actually, as I was speaking, that's exactly what I think I just did in my own mind. Yeah, I think metaphysics, I think you're right. Metaphysics is something that we just can't measure yet, or that appears to go against the natural order of things. But in reality, once we get to that point where we can understand it, we'll realize it doesn't.
Because it just operates under some other rules, but they are still universal rules.
Yeah.
I think whereas supernatural is the idea of suspending the natural order.
Yes. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
So I got it backwards.
No, I got you.
So is there such thing then? And again, I did what I do for my research lately with this is I went online, right? And I looked up like examples of supernatural would be ghosts, psychic abilities, divine interventions, magical spells, those kind of things are considered supernatural. So then I got thinking about that, especially the ghosts part got me thinking more in terms of paranormal, because I would have thought about the paranormal and the supernatural almost exactly the same thing then.
Yeah, that's how I would think of it.
Right. But there is a distinction, which is interesting, because I think that and this is where my mind got confused, is that the distinction that some people draw is that the supernatural are things that are fundamentally beyond the natural order, but paranormal are unusual or inexplicable phenomenon that may or may not be supernatural.
Oh, it's a more generic term, you mean?
Yes.
It's a more generic term of like, here's a thing that's happening. No one can explain it.
Mm-hmm.
If it can be explained, now it will be within the natural order. If it's true, conceptually, that it cannot be explained, then we would call it supernatural.
Yeah. Yes. So, and I think what caused the confusion in my head is when I looked up examples of paranormal and supernatural.
Yeah.
They both gave ghosts.
Sure. It sounds like paranormal would be more like the experience of I saw a thing without putting a label on it. Putting the label on it and definitively saying that's a ghost would be moving into the supernatural according to this definition, it seems like. Because you're saying that is a ghost. That is a thing that defies the natural order. Whereas I might be saying, I saw an apparition. I don't know what that is. It could be, fluid in my eyes.
Yeah. Or as in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, there could be more gravy than grave about you.
I don't think I've ever read it.
I used to read it every Christmas. Every year.
I should read that.
Every year I read it
I should read
that.
There
was about 10 years that every year I would read it.
I've seen the old timey, obviously I grew up on the Disney version, which I love.
Sure.
But I have seen the older one that was like scary.
Read the short story. It's a short story.
Yeah.
It's easy. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. So, but that got me thinking about this idea of, all right, my mind's all over the place. Let's start with this. How do we explain the belief in either supernatural, paranormal, whatever, that goes beyond culture?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting question.
And that appears in multiple cultures that at the time would not have been connected. Right. So like now, if we say, talk about, people have been all over this world and they've traveled and they've carried things. And so they may not have, it may not have originated, but it kind of takes on its own legend within that area and things like that. So, but what do we do about things that even when the two cultures first collided, they had very similar beliefs they believed in this. And now, is it that they're both coming up with something very similar to describe something very natural? Or does it lend itself to the fact that there actually may be something that would be defined as paranormal?
So I have a few thoughts about that. Number one is I will suspend judgment on the idea that cultures ever collide. Because I've heard arguments from historians in both ways, that the idea of cultures having no, the concept of cultures having no interaction together and then all of a sudden meeting each other, that is a conceptualization of the historical record. And there's also very smart historians that I've listened to that would say that that's just not the case, that cultures blended across areas that we just don't understand or we don't have the record for quite a bit. I don't know where I fall on that, actually.
So are you talking about like if you go all the way back to pre-continental drift, that there was some sort of culture that existed primarily, and then over time they drew apart?
Well, I mean, you could do that. That's not what I mean, though.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds because, like I said, I was just going to suspend judgment on that and then move on as if, like taking that as the a priori position. But like, there's concepts of Celtic civilizations encountering Rome.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard, and again, I'm just not an expert enough in this, but linguistic historians a lot of times will trace language that shows that there had to have been more interaction
mm-hmm.
prior to where the historical record shows the interaction,
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a lot more trade in information and thought and just a lot more than what we get in the historical record. And so then a lot of what looks like these two cultures were distinct and then they met,
mm-hmm.
turns out they actually weren't all that distinct, according to these historians. So anyway, again, that's a little bit of a tangent, but I'm just saying it's possible that that might be somewhat of the explanation, is that humans actually have been moving between these cultures
mm-hmm.
a lot more than we think.
Mm-hmm.
And so these ideas might just have percolated through osmosis, that might be one explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as compelled by that, actually. I think a lot of these stories, they make sense to me from a psychological perspective, in the same way that the fact that the flood story shows up across cultures
mm-hmm.
makes sense to me from a psychological perspective. I think if we take as a first position that we are a species that evolved from other species and that life came from the water,
mm-hmm.
then it makes sense and that we have been trying desperately to not dry out ever since, then it makes sense to me that we would have in our collective myth, all of us, because it's something we share,
mm-hmm.
Some sort of myth about the water and about its life-bringing nature, but also its danger,
mm-hmm.
So anyway, this going back to the paranormal thing, I mean, your example that you had put in the notes was of vampires.
Mm-hmm.
Death and the fear of death seems to be a unifying experience.
Yeah.
That's pre-conscious. The idea of living forever.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't need a high level of cognition to know that when you saw the red stuff coming out of someone long enough that they died, maybe that red stuff has something, you wouldn't have to think very much about that red stuff is your life.
Mm-hmm.
The blood is your life. If you could drink it, you would live forever.
Right. Well, and then obviously that's a huge part of a lot of cultures too.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the Jewish cultic system.
Sure.
Right. Ancient. It becomes very much part of Christian.
Sure.
Drink my blood, Jesus. Now, of course, there's all sorts of discussions on what that is, but I see that. I was also thinking about like people who deal with, what's it called? It just went right out of my head. Iron deficiencies and things like that.
Anemia.
And that the whiteness because I think that they're also like the sightings of these things. All right. So let's
you're talking about like the fact that vampires tend to be
like
described as pale.
Yeah. And they can't be out in the sun and they can't be, there seems to be like common descriptors of it. It's just, they're very, very similar no matter where they are. So part of me then thinks, because I'm not really it's interesting, right? I really strive for consistency in my beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know that there are certain things that I am completely inconsistent on. So, like, for example, I readily accept the fact that there's a God.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue against the existence of a vampire. I would argue against the existence of angels, the way people talk about them. I would I argue against all these other things, but then I readily accept others. And the reason I do that is because I can.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, without getting too much into what is the
right to you.
It does.
Seems correct.
And I do think that there's something to be said, like I mentioned this past Sunday in our class. I do think there's something to be said about what brings you comfort, what helps you live your best life in this world. And so for some, it is, I'm going to cling to a belief in God, and that's going to help me live well. And for others, it's, I have to jettison that because it is actually keeping me from living well. And so, anyway, but that's a conversation for another time.
Well, I just, this is interesting that I'm thinking this because it's goes along the questions that one of the questions I wanted to talk to Peter Rollins about next week is, I think that the subconscious, the collective subconscious answer to this question, it just makes sense to me. I'm not saying that's the answer, but it makes sense to me. Now, having said that, one of the conversations that Krista and I had was about, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but essentially, do I think that it's possible that there could be other types of intelligences, other types of beings, and beings and intelligences that I might consider to be higher, and that might not be detectable. And the thing is that if I take as a first position the infinite nature of the universe, both in terms of time and space, and I do, because I can't understand anything other than that. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I feel like I'm kind of backed into that position. Then I do understand that along an infinite timeline, all all types of organizations of matter that can be, will be, if it's infinite, right? And so I can imagine a world in which there are other things, beings, whatever, that exist in some way that I could not detect, and also that exist in some way that I could only sometimes detect, or maybe some people only sometimes could detect, right? And this is where I actually, because I get backed into this position every once in a while, where it's hard for me to deny the existence of God because of that position that I just gave. But I don't see it as an ultimate. I can conceptualize the like I said, different types of beings that might be higher than me. That might be what someone means when they say God. It's not. That doesn't make any sense to me. But it's why I can say I've actually gotten to the place where I feel like polytheism makes some sort of logical sense as a position. Like these conceptual consciousnesses, but just not that they would be ultimate, that they would just be other formations of matter, formed in a way that we don't understand. Again, it's not something I believe in, but it's something that I can't rule out. Right. And so I can I can imagine that as an answer to this question of what we would call, actually that would be metaphysical in the definitions that we gave, where it still obeys the laws of nature, even if we don't know the laws.
Right. We just haven't been able to identify that yet.
But it's not what's compelling to me. The most compelling to me, and the simplest, the Occam's razor to me, is we are a species that thinks that we are living a life of cognition. But in reality, we are 99% drive and instinct with a storytelling function, right? And so our instincts, what we conceptualize as what's real, has to do with the things that are most fundamental to us. And there are certain things that are universal. They're very few, but there are certain things that are universal to humans, right? Being born of a mother, the trauma of birth. That's every single human, right? The fact that we will die, right? The fact that we exist in life prior to having that frontal lobe functioning properly or fully, I guess would be the right way to put it. That's pretty universal as well. So I think if we accept those positions, the idea of ghosts showing up everywhere, the idea of, where people that could turn into something else. I don't know. I guess that makes sense to me that it would show up in lots of different places, but I can't rule out that they're real, obviously.
Sure. So would it be fair then to say that the development of the paranormal is a result of the ability to tell a story? It's actually just a byproduct of storytelling.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to make sense of things that we can't make sense of.
That's a really interesting thing to say, but I think that's true. Because I think that it can't. I think if you don't have a frontal lobe that's the narrative voice talking to yourself about your instinct, you would just be instinct. Yeah. And I think you would just have experience. You would never even have the experience of wanting to tell what something is. You would just be experience.
Yeah.
Which of course is why we never would have died if we didn't eat from the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge you couldn't eat.
I would love to talk about that sometime. And it's not because of how smart I am. It's because of a book I read. But
we'll put it on the calendar.
Let's see, Rabbi David Foreman has a fantastic book on the story of Genesis, the beginning. And it's really good. Okay, so then I think.
Yeah, what do you think? I gave my
no,
answer.
That's great.
What do you
think?
Well,
I was the one asking the question. It doesn't mean I have an answer. But hearing what you're saying, this is a thought that pops into my head. I think that it's very possible the reason there are similar paranormal explanations is because there are similar life experiences. And since we are all trying to make sense by telling story, that the stories would be very similar.
They would at least have, they'd have, and I think that the only caveat that I would have to that is that I think that these stories all come out of the most primary of experiences. Because I do think that you can get very different kinds of people, right? I do think that culture can shape, if you think of a person as a pyramid, and this I'm stealing directly from Daryl Cooper, but I think he's right about this.
Okay, are you going to talk about the pyramids, the existence of pyramids?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No.
All right, go ahead. I just heard you say pyramid and Daryl Cooper.
No, we should talk about that. But
because I think that relates, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, but if you think about a human as a pyramid with like the foundation, the very, very bottom being something that we share with all humans, with all other humans.
Right.
and then every step it gets narrower and narrower and narrower, where until you get to the very, very top, where you have the culture of the individual, right? I think you can have humans, they're all humans, but I think you can have differences way far down, right? So I do think that, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it seems like our frontal lobe kind of does some sort of like reset switch at around 4 to 6 years of age. And then it's a different experience. So you're still having life experiences, and it's not that those life experiences wouldn't affect you in a subconscious way. But I think these stories that you're talking about, and the things that you would find across cultures, to me, it would make sense that they would come from the impressions on your unconscious. I'm probably using this incorrectly, but the impressions on your unconscious that come at the most fundamental place. Again, these things that are experiences that we all share, everyone shares, and that are way, way, way before our frontal lobe turns on and can start telling stories about it. It would make sense that those would produce these experiences that seem like they're similar across cultures. And I'm kind of taking your word for it also, because are vampires, obviously vampires culturally are a kind of deep Eastern European, that's what we think of, but that's because we think of Dracula, right? We think of it, and Vlad was in
the Impaler,
right? Was in Eastern Europe. So that's what I think of, but that's just my impression. I do wonder if the concept of vampires, like we understand, shows up in, like, would it show up in pre-modern Korean society, or in the deepest.
So I happen to have examples of ancient vampiric cultures and concepts.
Yeah, let's do it
in front of me. All right. So Mesopotamia has one. Stories of female demons like Lilitu and Lamashtu were common, believed to prey on infants and mothers and drink blood. The Ekimu was another Mesopotamian ghost that craved the blood of the living. So all the way back to Mesopotamia. Then in ancient Greece and Rome, Greeks believed in creatures like Lamia, is that how you pronounce it? Who devoured men, and the Impuse, shape-shifting demons who drained life essence. Romans had tales of Lemurus. And if I'm destroying these, if someone's like, oh my gosh, he's mispronouncing those, get over it. Restless dead who could cause harm.
Okay.
Ancient Egypt, the Aku, were restless spirits believed to cause illness and misfortune by draining the life from the living, foreshadowing aspects of vampire lore. East China has theirs. I'm not going to try to even pronounce those, but I think it's really interesting. The Japanese word translates the hopping vampire, which feeds on the life force. And Japanese folklore includes creatures like a couple others that may subtly drain energy or blood. In the Philippines, they have one, this shape-shifting creature that can detach its upper body and fly, feeding on the blood of pregnant women. So there's a couple killing the pregnant moms and the infants, which I could see where that would explain like infant mortality rates at a certain time. West Africa has the Ashanti. The Ashanti people have folklore about the Obayufo, a witch-like creature described as having shifty eyes and a preoccupation with food.
Okay.
I know people like that.
I don't know why you looked at me so hard.
Sorry. Aztec culture has they have I think it's called the Savato, which it's created when a woman dies in childbirth and seeks the life force of children. I've actually seen that on a show. And
what's interesting about most of those cultures that you talked about too, and I fall into this kind of trap when I'm talking about history is that most of those are pretty recent cultures.
Other than Mesopotamia, yeah.
Yeah, Mesopotamia would be the oldest.
Egypt.
And even then, what are you talking about? 5,000, 6,000 years, maybe?
I think that they say that real culture, the way we would understand culture today, doesn't develop until about 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, right. And so, that's the thing that's really difficult is when we're talking about this kind of thing that's so deep in the human psyche is, we've got records that go back, 3 seconds ago in terms of, what I accept as human history. But it is interesting. And then that kind of lends credence to the idea that you wouldn't need like a pre-Pangea, which it wouldn't be Pangea, right? Because Pangea would have separated long before humans evolved. Anyway, whatever. But you could have some of these folklore, these stories, long before civilizations that we even recognize, like Mesopotamia, exist. Maybe there's some more cohesive human civilization prior to all of this that they all kind of come from. I don't think you need that answer, but that's at least
couple things that popped into my head. I'm reading this other book. I hate when that happens. I can't remember the name of it. Something about the gods. Anyway, it's a big book, and so it's going to take me a while to get through. It's not like the Stephen King book that I'm about to knock out.
Nonfiction or fiction?
It would be nonfiction.
Okay.
Well, I guess it depends on who you talk to.
Well, you know what I mean. It's not. It's not.
You're going to buy it. You're going to buy it in nonfiction, or you're going to check it out of the library in the nonfiction section. Anyway, they have found evidence of a map that would pre-exist what we believe cultures, and it charts the coastline of Antarctica.
I've heard about this.
Which there's no way that anyone should have been able to chart it, and it's accurate.
And my wife is listening to this right now. She's going insane that I haven't brought up the Young Dryas theory, which is this theory that it's very compelling. I sound like I'm being dismissive. I'm not. It's just that I haven't brought it up yet. It's this theory that, well, without going too far, that cataclysms on Earth have actually happened at least a few times, worldwide cataclysms. And that the theory goes, some of it has to do with the Earth, our solar system actually moving through, I think this is right, moving through asteroid fields or something like that, meteor fields, or
I'm going to have to take your word for it because I'm not familiar with it.
And that causing like this mass catastrophe. And the theory, part of the theory is that human civilization, their theory is that human civilization actually was far more advanced, say, and I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but like just for the sake of the argument, say like 25,000 years ago, human evolution human civilization is as civilized as we are now. Maybe they have different technologies, but they're as developed as we are now. And then this cataclysm happens, and there's a remnant of people who have some knowledge that they keep and they code through, songs and legends and that kind of thing. And so then, and part of the theory that comes up is that there's these stories that happen, these folklore stories that happen across cultures of these kind of wise men type people that come through and deliver, in the myths that deliver the information that gets the civilization started again, right? So that's part of it. Again, I'm massacring it. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because that would be part of it, is that they would have these maps of Antarctica because civilization actually was, much more developed than it had been discovered, 10,000 years prior. And so this information somehow was delivered. I don't know.
Well,
I'm not. And again, it sounds like I'm being dismissive. I'm not.
Right.
I just don't. I don't know it well enough to describe it.
So I was convinced enough by reading what I've read so far that there has to be something prior to what we know. Just the fact that someone in the 1500s was able to get their hands on a map that predated them and compile it into one of their maps that had the coastline of Antarctica, which, like, the only way I think that we haven't been able to chart what that looks like until like the 60s when we developed the equipment to be able to see through, air quotes, the ice. That coastline that is on that map is accurate, and has been confirmed with the use of technology now.
Wait, it's the coastline that's under the ice sheets?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't know that.
I'll bring the book. Are you going to be here Sunday? I'll bring the book.
Yeah.
And I'll let you look at the maps.
Yeah.
They blew my mind. And also, I haven't gotten this far, but we mentioned pyramids. You were talking about like the pyramid where, it becomes more and more focused.
Yeah.
But when you said pyramids, it made me think about having pyramids in North Africa and South and Central America.
Yeah.
And I've heard explanations about continental drift, which I brought up 25 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And that would explain sort of how that happened. But I've also heard explanations going back to the supernatural, paranormal, whatever at this point, that offers up alien life form.
Sure.
As an explanation
Always
for that.
Aliens.
Right. Okay. And so aliens.
Always bring back to aliens.
Right. And
it's either aliens or it's lizard people who live under the
which is,
Anuki or whatever.
That must be the right one. But it would just be something that we haven't been able to explain yet. So it's actually supernatural. All right. So and whenever I hear like about aliens, I want to eye roll. I roll at a lot of things.
I've noticed.
Have you?
It's one of the things we that we connect on.
Which anyway, but hey, if you want to believe in that, that's fine. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't bother me. And it change me.
It seems outside of possibility in my mind. That there is no other life in the universe.
I mean, I won't discount it, but like when I see it, my initial reaction is, and that's because I've watched too many movies probably about it, and I like the movies.
Yeah.
But Catherine sent in her most recent email to us.
Yeah.
She writes this: whistleblowers have been testifying in congressional hearings about the existence of non-human intelligence and non-human aircraft. All right. And then she asks a very specific question, which maybe we can save for another time.
Yeah, I really like this.
I like the question that she asks, just sort of as a teaser. She asks, how, if at all, would the modern Christian paradigm change in light of government disclosure regarding the existence of non-human entities? So she also tells us where we can check a few things out. And this is where I get very interested in it. Well, not very interested in it. I feel like maybe I need to at least re-examine my opinion on it when it's not just in movies anymore. So I want to play this clip for you, which is one of the a U.S. government
some official
congressional. It's a congressional hearing.
Yeah,
which I was like, really?
I know. Remember that time frame? That time where they were like, they're just saying that we know there's aliens and nobody cares.
Yeah.
The House Oversight and Accountability Subcommittee held a historic hearing on unidentified anomalous phenomena, also known as UFOs. Lawmakers heard from 3 witnesses today, including former U.S. military and intelligence community personnel who claim to have come into contact with such objects. Natalie Brand has more now from that hearing.
We have nothing close to it.
Retired Navy Commander David Fravor testified before Congress about an encounter he cannot explain. A strange tic-tac-shaped object he says he saw in the sky during a training mission in 2004.
The technology that we faced was far superior than anything that we had.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are digging into the national security concerns and the mystery posed by unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, also known as UFOs.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years. I know the exact locations.
A whistleblower who formerly worked on the Defense Department's UAP task force, David Grush, claims he was denied access to information on a government UFO crash retrieval program, something the Pentagon disputes.
Biologics came with some of these recoveries.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to.
Congress members from both sides of the aisle are demanding more transparency from the U.S. Department of Defense. A recent report revealed the government is investigating more than 650 potential sightings, but Ryan Graves of Americans for Safe Aerospace says there's still a stigma around reporting.
Right now, we need a system where pilots can report without fear of losing their jobs.
The witnesses say better data is needed to determine what the identified objects are and their origins. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
All right. So, without diving too deep into it, because here's what I'm thinking. I want to know what your thoughts are, first of all, about, okay, what are your thoughts about that news clip?
Yeah, I remember when these testimonies were happening. Here's a few things. Number one, and this is going to be rehashing for some people. Number one, non-human biologics means nothing. That our world is covered in non-human biologics.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a red herring. That's what you say when you want to imply that it's aliens.
Yeah, I mean, non-human biologics is basically anything that's not human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what that means, that doesn't mean that there's no aliens. That means that you haven't said anything.
The salad I ate last night was it was non-human.
Exactly. The UAP thing, the changing the acronym to a UAP instead of a UFO, nobody talks about it. That is a common tactic that is used in rhetoric to make something sound important because it sounds new, right? UAP, nobody's heard of you. Oh, it's UAP. It's a UAP. Now, it's not exactly a UFO. It's what we used to call UFOs, but now it's UAP. Nobody will say this specifically, but it implies that it's more serious. It implies that we've really looked into this and now we're calling it a UAP.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying that they're doing that on purpose. I'm saying that doesn't do anything for me. And it, again, is something that makes me go, okay, I kind of see what you're doing. Now, that's all my kind of throat clearing. My first thought when all of this, these congressional hearings were happening, is this doesn't change what I think these things are at all. I think 100% we and other governments have secret military programs, and our government, oh my gosh, our government is essentially a corporation, as far as I'm concerned, run by the military-industrial complex. So it doesn't bother my worldview at all that every once in a while somebody would see one of these things that we're not supposed to see, and that the government would be in possession of lots of unidentified flying objects or whatever, unidentified craft that we don't know what, and we don't have anything like this technology. Well, number one, I don't really know that this person would know that. And when he says we, what does he mean? Does he mean Lockheed doesn't? Does he mean Boeing doesn't? Does he mean Airbus doesn't? You know what I mean? Does he mean Northrop Grumman doesn't? I don't know that he would know that. And also, let's assume that all of them don't have any kind of technology like this. Do we know that there's some Korean weapons manufacturer that doesn't? Do we know that there's no Swedish manufacturer that doesn't? You know what I mean? So,
right.
So my point being, none of that said aliens to me. All of it said there definitely seems like are crafts/weapons that somebody within the government that seems like they should know doesn't know what they are. That seems fine. But I kind of take the Elon Musk thing, perspective, which is like, if aliens wanted to show up, I mean, every video is so blurry. Every video is so like, it's always something that I wouldn't accept on my iPhone if I got it texted to me. You know what I mean? I'd be like, send that again. That video didn't come through well, you know?
Yeah.
So,
you didn't have the benefit of watching the news clip.
That's
by the
true.
way. I did, and it was very blurry.
It was it?
Yeah. Yeah, it did look like a Tic Tac.
And I believe these naval
black
officers.
and white Tic Tac.
Yeah, I believe these naval officers when they say, I'm flying in my craft that's supposed to be top state of the art, right? I am a Top Gun. I am the best of the best. I can do things that you wouldn't be able to survive 2 seconds without passing out in my co-pilot seat. And I came up on this thing, and then it moved in a way that it can't move. I believe that. I think that I can totally see that actually happening, and there being something that they actually saw.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't think that means that it has to be a craft. I do think that there's light technology, like light projection technology that I don't understand, that people have talked about that could explain that, where it's just a projection. But it absolutely, you would say, no, I've seen holograms. That's not a hologram. That's, I could touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could be. It could also be a craft that, the CIA and Lockheed Martin have been working on, or whatever. I don't know. And could it be aliens? Obviously, I can't say it can't. It couldn't be.
Sure.
It's just not where my mind goes.
I think it goes back to the idea that at that point, what's happening is the storytelling, the meaning making is kicking in. And for whoever's sharing the story of what they've seen, that is the one that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
All right. So here's where we are. We've talked about supernatural and paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
And in a second, I want to hear where we think we have common ground on that.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got Peter Rollins coming up next week.
Mm-hmm.
And then the week after that, I want to come back to this thing about aliens. But specifically, I want to talk about
the effect that it would have on theology.
Yes.
Yeah, and I want to talk about,
because I think there's a lot more to it than we might. Like, my initial reaction would be like, yeah, it doesn't change anything. But what do you do with the fact that that humans were created in the image of God?
Yeah, well, I want to keep our powder dry because I have a lot of thoughts about that.
So that'll be good. All right. So that'll be in 2 weeks. All right. But where did we end? Do we have common ground on supernatural and paranormal?
Where do you think our common ground is on that?
I would say that it seems to me that we hold out the fact that we don't know everything and that it's possible. I would go so far, though, as to say, for me, it's not probable. But it doesn't, at the end of the day, if it turns out that I'm wrong on that, and that it very much, the paranormal, the supernatural very much does exist, my response to that would be like, wow, got that wrong.
See, I don't think I would have that response. I think it would change things for me.
Would it?
Yeah. I think that if somehow it could be proven, somehow it came into my worldview as something that actually exists. Yeah, I think it would change things for me. I think our common ground is that we both roll our eyes a lot.
That could be every episode, Lucas.
Yeah, I know.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening to Living on Common Ground. If you enjoyed the conversation, please follow the show and share it with your friends. The more people we can get living on common ground, the better the world will be.